Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. Today is the 16th of October, 2024, and I am Gianni DePoce, your host. We are seeing a pretty impressive rebound in the stock market today after a sharp and abrupt sell-off in equities yesterday. So let's get right into it and look at the chart of the Dow Jones. We're in a pretty intense period of geocosmic activity. We started off this week with an opposition between Venus and Uranus, notorious for breakouts, either higher or lower, or breaks of support or resistance. That occurred the same day that the sun formed a square to Mars. And then yesterday, we also had a trine between Venus and Neptune. Now, the theme of Venus aspects is going to continue. We're going to have Venus move into the sign of Sagittarius tomorrow on the 17th, and then next week on the 22nd, we will have the sun form a square to Pluto. And I'm going to touch on why Venus going into Sagittarius could be meaningful for some other markets in just a moment. But if you take a look at the Dow Jones here, it does appear that we are in a breakout mode. You can see here that we hit a new all-time high in the Dow yesterday, but it was an outside day. You did take out the previous day's high and low, but right back higher today. And this is typical of a strong bull market. We continue to anticipate and wait for the NASDAQ to hit a new all-time high. Taking a look at the NASDAQ 100 here, you can see that it has not made a new all-time high since early July. So we do have intermarket bearish divergence now in effect for over 2 months, which is a concern. Keep in mind that technology is the largest and most important sector for the stock market, and a lot of these stocks trade on the NASDAQ. So Venus opposite Uranus, you would think, would correspond to a breakout, and it did start on Monday. And the good news is that we are bouncing up higher today. Again, we'll see if that can continue into the weekend. We do have Netflix earnings tomorrow after the closing bell. So keep an eye on that one, because if you do get an earnings beat from Netflix, that could correspond to a big move higher. I will, share that stock with you real quick. We usually don't look at stocks here. I'm going to touch on some other sectors that are moving that I think may be of interest from a geocosmic standpoint. But interestingly, the top performing sector in the S&P 500 this year has been communications, XLC. So that's been a really strong performer, and really not surprising given that Jupiter is in the sign of Gemini. Gemini rules communication. Jupiter can increase demand. But Netflix is a big, important stock for the NASDAQ as well. So keep an eye on this. Even though you've been coming back down here, I would look for that to potentially exhibit some sort of move that is meaningful and could be important for the overall indices. Let's take a look at bonds. You can see here TLT coming off an impressive low, which may have been a primary and potentially even intermediate term cycle bottom. And what's even nicer about this is that on October 11th, you did have Pluto go direct. Pluto rules debt. And so if we had a primary cycle low completed the first trading day after the planet that rules debt changed directions, I mean, it really doesn't get better than that when it comes to financial astrology, right? So we'll have to keep an eye on this. I do think that interest rates will continue their downside trajectory going into next year. That means that bond prices would go higher. But the conundrum on that front obviously has to do with the energy market. Take a look at USO here. Did experience a pretty sharp sell-off as Venus formed a trine to Neptune, which is the co-ruler of energy. And then we obviously started this week, this past Sunday, Sun trine Jupiter. So favorable aspects to energy-related planets. And we did see the market sell off. That could speak to, some potential headwinds that remain here on the demand front as well. Let's take a look at precious metals. GLD making a new high today. We're seeing, some pretty strong price action in both gold and silver. So we'll have to see if that continues. I do think that silver could be in the final phase of one of its cycles. So keep an eye on that. You could get a parabolic rally, but also a sharp subsequent correction. Let's take a look at both Bitcoin and Ethereum. So really big moves here. Venus opposite Uranus, big breakout higher. That's exactly what you want to see in this market. So it looks like we're going to try and test resistance in the $70,000 to $72,000 area. So that could be a level where some profits may be captured, but it does look like we are entering the final year of a longer term cycle in Bitcoin. But I want to talk about Ethereum as it pertains to Venus in Scorpio. So Venus is still in Scorpio, and tomorrow Venus is going to go into Sagittarius. And similar to Venus in Libra, we often see 20% or greater moves. And so if you take this low from October 3rd and project 20% higher, you can see that if Ethereum Cash hits 2770, let's say 2780, sometime by tomorrow, you will satisfy that 20% move study. Now, you might be off by a day or so, but I keep an eye on Ethereum here and see if it can satisfy that historical study of Venus also in Scorpio associated with a move of 20% or more. And I'm actually going to jump back over to silver real quick because I do want to point out that this is one of Ray's studies from over the years that, this low here on October 8th did occur with Venus in Scorpio. And a lot of times you see important lows form in silver when Venus is in Scorpio. Another sector that is on the move today is uranium. And this is really noteworthy because we're going into a really interesting year in 2025 with outer planets. So pretty much every outer planet is going to be changing signs over the course of the next year. But particularly, I'm thinking about Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. Those planets are going to be in trine to one another. And both Pluto, plutonium, Uranus, uranium are important radioactive elements that are used for nuclear operations. And so you're seeing this big boom in uranium that could still be something worth watching and monitoring. And so keep an eye on this because I think this is a theme that going into next year will continue. It's supported by the geocosmics and also the artificial intelligence. If you want to have AI, there are a lot greater power demands, and they need to be, basically fueled by something, and nuclear can provide that. So something to keep on your radar as a potential investment opportunity. But that's all that I wanted to cover with you today. Thank you so much for watching. We did just send out the latest edition of the monthly cycles report on Monday and Tuesday. So that is MMA's flagship report where you can see and observe all of our updated forecasts on stocks, bonds, commodities, currencies, and more. Next week, we will have the Shanghai report, a very exciting market that is finally on the move again. I am looking at FXI here, China. We are bouncing off that low yesterday. So we have our updated Shanghai report that will be issued on Monday. And then, of course, the ETF report will come out next week as well. So any questions, send us a note at customerservice@mmacycles.com. But feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. We do have videos that come out on a weekly basis, and we are building our lineup of guests for the fall. And I think you will be very pleased and interested with the speakers we have that are going to join us here on YouTube. So that's all for now, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll see you same time, same place next week.